Part 39. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 381. Chapter 381 Self-indulgent. The Empress liked Wen Shizhe very much. Whenever he has nothing to do, he invites her to the palace to talk. Every time he listens to this beautiful little girl using her unique logic to describe the weird things in the shop, he feels extremely happy. When he became more interested, he also called a few other girls he liked to come over and prepare some food in the small kitchen. Today, the queen called Wen Shizhe again and asked, "I haven't seen your good friend Wen Yu for a long time, so take her with you too." When she saw Wen Yu, the queen mother remembered, "Wen Yu, your sister-in-law just left, right?" Wen Yu replied, "As far as I'm concerned, yes." The queen scolded the people next to her, "You didn't remind me? I just let them chat while they have nothing to do in these 2 days. Where can she come out conveniently?" The female officer next to her quickly apologized. Wen Yu smiled and said, "Thank you for your consideration, the family affairs are basically finished." The queen sighed, "Then Mrsu is really pitiful. Can she leave a little girl behind?" "Yes. Now, my mother is carrying it myself. Take good care of her, write it down for me, and when she becomes a filial piety, bring it to me for a look." The female officer quickly recorded it. Several other girls seemed to be quite familiar with Wen Shizhe. Another one was holding a recipe book and was asking Wen Shizhe for advice. "There is a small kitchen in the queen's palace. I made some snacks and candies today." The queen tasted it and thought it tasted good, so she ordered some to be sent to several palaces. A few people chatted happily for a while, and a palace maid came in and called out, "Empress," without saying anything further. The queen looked at her and nodded, "You guys, go to the side hall to take shelter." The female officer stepped forward, "Madam and girls, please come this way." Wen Yu also stood up and prepared to walk to the side hall. The position where the female officer stood happened to block Wen Yu. When everyone moves forward, she wants to take a step forward. But the female officer did not wait for her, but walked directly in front of her. His figure paused, as if he wanted to press her down. With a thought in his heart, Wen Yu turned to look at the queen. But he saw that the queen was also looking at him, with a calm face. She followed the others into the side hall and stepped away as soon as she stepped through the door, hiding behind the curtain and looking back. After a while, there was the sound of footsteps, and a young man of medium height flashed past the side hall door. When you could see clearly that he was not tall, had an ordinary appearance, and was dressed in ordinary clothes. When you didn't dare to poke his head again, and only listened to the young man say, "Greetings to the Empress." "Is Qi Lu here?" The queen's voice was very gentle. "Thank you for the snacks and candies that I gave you, they taste so good. It's just out of the pot, relatively fresh. You have to remember to balance work and rest, and don't work too hard. I still have guests at the moment, so you go first." "Yes." The young man didn't hesitate, saluted, turned around and left. When you didn't dare to look up anymore. When the footsteps stopped, the female officer led a few people out. When you still followed behind, wondering in her mind, "Does the Empress want me to see this person? Who is he? Why?" Suddenly, she thought, could this be the person behind the screen who listened to the Emperor's affairs as mentioned by Mr. Li Ji? Look at the queen again, she is joking with Zuzu. Zuzu is doing business for her own embroidery shop. This year's spring materials came in batches years ago, and now they are arriving one after another. Zuzu brought some. This year's main color is elegant. My dear, you see, the colors are very light. For a while, Au liked it. Wear this color. Several other girls gathered together to look at it. Is there anything new in this picture album? This is a new product launched by Arzialu this year. This dress is so beautiful. I have grown taller this year, and the skirt is turned out at the front, and it reaches my ankles. When you walked up to the Empress and asked in a low voice, "Empress, I accidentally looked back just now." The young master was full of energy and good-humored. When you still has some talent for painting. He looked at it fiercely. What do you think? Look, that face looks like the long-lived master in his youth. The Queen Mother also didn't look at Wen Yu. People who can paint see people differently, right? Maybe they look like each other, but I have never seen the young long-lived lord. Looking at the demeanor, it is not the same as the royal demeanor. Are you not a descendant of the royal family? You will know later. The queen covered her mouth with her handkerchief. Mother, Zuzu is about to get married. Wen Yu wants to give her a gift. She wants to choose from the things left by her mother. There is an 8-treasure inlaid dressing table and a large lacquer screen. Please give Wen Yu an idea. Which one is better? How can I know if I haven't seen the real thing? However, I like screens. Look over there. The queen pointed to a large group of peonies next to her. Of course the things belonging to the Empress are good. However, they are only placed in the palace of the Empress. They cannot be placed in the halls of ordinary people. This piece is not that big. I just moved a set from the warehouse to the Imperial study room a few days ago. It is much bigger than this piece. If you listen to me, the screen is a good choice. When you understood and said gratefully, "Thank you, madam, for putting yourself in our shoes." Who are we? Who cares about you? You are so selfish. The queen gave her a white look. Just now, the young man went out and asked the beside him, "Have you heard about them?" Who are they? Your Highness, my niece, Master Wen, Zhangzhu, and friends often come to the palace to accompany your majesty, and they even make some food together when they have time. I thought I would meet your Highness, the winked. Since his Highness has not yet gotten married, the thought that the queen wanted to be a matchmaker. This time, the young man's thoughts were dispersed and he smiled. The craftsmanship is really good. When Yu and Wen Shizu left the palace and saw Li Zhang waiting at the door, he said mysteriously and excitedly, "I've been waiting for you too. Great news." What's wrong? Master Qing is awake. That's right, Master Qing woke up from a big dream. She didn't want to wake up because the scene was so beautiful. Lady Yan is teaching her sisters how to dance. Lady Yan is so light that she can spin in place for an hour and do hundreds of somersaults in one go. The clothes and belt are elegant and not messy at all. I have also turned over it myself. After 5 or 6 turns, I am sure to fall. Lady Yan's straight waist, shoulders, and neck are like a swan, which is particularly beautiful. The way she looked at her eldest brother was always affectionate. Eldest brother's face turns red every time she looks at him. That way will always make my sister-in-law angry. The sisters, however, laughed until their stomachs ached. The Bai sisters are all talented, but they are good at different talents. The 4th sister is the best dancer, and later, in order to support Yubai, she danced in a brothel. The applause and lewd laughter of those patrons seemed to be in her ears. Master Qing's heart felt like needles pricking her heart, and she began to convulse. At this time, Yubai was working in his main room. Lan Zhou squatted at the door, watching the turtle bask in the sun. The girl-in-law had just turned her body over for Master Qing and moved her legs and feet. She was resting on the veranda drinking tea, so no one noticed her. The 5 sisters are very capable, and the eldest brother praised his own embroidery skills. He is better than his predecessor. It's a pity that she was still young at that time and had not yet mastered all the Bai family's embroidery techniques. Humbling explosion, confused sisters. Officers and soldiers. Shout. Running diners and servants. The elder brother who was captured. Brother, he only looked back at them and didn't even have time to say a word. The 12-year-old girl didn't know that that time was her farewell. The husband and sons were taken away, and the sister-in-law herself was about to give birth, but she was the most calm and took care of their 3 sisters who were not yet married. Later, news came that the eldest brother and nephews were all dead. Several people burst into tears and refused to believe it. No. Something must have happened. The death of her husband left no color on the sister-in-law's face. But he still rubbed his belly and stood firmly in front of them. But, suddenly one day, my sister-in-law went crazy and screamed like crazy. At night, he hanged himself. She gave birth to Yubai while hanging on a sling. Master Ching is waving his arms and kicking his feet. What did your sister-in-law shout? Tan Yanling. Li Daniu. Is it you? Did you harm the Bai family? It was I who led the wolf into the house. I am the sinner of the Bai family. Husband, I can't help you. Tan Yanling. Li Daniu. Master Ching shouted hoarsely and opened his eyes. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 382. Chapter 382 Prince Yang's son. Lanzhou at the door heard the noise and stood up. The maid outside the house also heard it, and hurriedly walked in, shouting, Master Ching is awake, go and invite the young master. There is no need to invite me. Yubai has excellent hearing and has already heard it. With the help of people around him, he hurriedly ran over. And Master Ching was sweating profusely, and his eyes were full of madness and pain. And Yubai staggered over and fell beside her bed. When Master Ching saw him, he backed away crazily and recognized him. You are Yubai. He didn't speak for a long time, which was a bit inappropriate. She became excited and wanted to pull him, but as soon as she got up, she fell down again. The 2 people looked at each other and turned from crying to laughing. And, you're finally awake. Yubai was rarely excited. How long? It's been a long time, it's the new year now. Yubai had tears streaming down her cheeks. Where is this? You were assassinated, and those people were very powerful. The 5th master and the girl were worried that their home would not be safe, so they sent us to the prince's other courtyard. Lanzhou came with us. Lanzhou was leaning against the door, peeking out with one eye. Master Ching's shout might have frightened him. Prince's courtyard. Master Ching looked at the carved beams and paintings in the room. Yes, I have lived here for a long time. Now, the prince and grandson are living in the main courtyard. It's a long story. And, do you feel uncomfortable somewhere? It's boring. All you eat is liquid food. If you hadn't met the imperial doctor, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to wake up now. Go back to His Highness the grandson, and then tell the 5th master and the 5th grandma. Get some food. Master Ching struggled to raise his arm, which was thin and limp, and moved his fingers. Did I hurt my head? Yes. My shoulder is also injured. In order to heal the injury, I shaved off all my hair. However, you can wake up, see, listen and speak. Yubai is very content he was lying on the bedside, as he once was. Despair. My hands seem a little inflexible. Master Ching moved his fingers. It's been too long without moving. By the time when you arrived, Master Ching had already eaten something and understood most of the things. She was half leaning on the bed, her eyes were sunken and her face was pale. Extremely thin, his hair is still covered, and he looks several years older. But, she woke up. Isn't this a gift from God? Master Ching. Zuzu cried first. When Yu's eye circles were also red. It'll be fine if you wake up. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere else? Master Ching was even more excited. I'm fine, but I just don't have the strength. Just now, Yubai told me what happened. You saved my life again. We are not relatives, but we are better than relatives. You are welcome. When you sat down and told some important things that happened. Master Ching said, I remembered something. When the accident happened in the Bai family, The eldest sister-in-law was relatively calm. Later, when they heard that the eldest brother and nephews were dead, everyone was dumbfounded and did not expect that the matter would be so serious. Although the eldest sister-in-law was heartbroken, but she insisted on taking care of our sisters. However, one day she suddenly went crazy and shouted, "Tan Yanling!" Li Daniu said that she led the wolf into the house and harmed the Bai family. Mrs. Zhen Ho's surname is Tan, when you blurted out, "But I don't know her name." "My sister-in-law's surname is Tan," Master Ching said. "She is the only descendant of the Tan family in Dingzhouyazi." "Who is Li Daniu? Didn't we have an embroiderer with this name?" When you was stunned. Tan Yanling's original name was Li Daniu, and she took her mother's surname. The name was given by my eldest brother. She is a distant relative of my sister-in-law. She was very poor and miserable, so she came to ask for help. My sister-in-law took them in and found a place for her mother to live. And raised her up. And this girl Li stayed in the villa. But at that time, we had many sisters, many friends, and many social activities, but no one seemed to pay attention to her later. Master Ching recalled, later, when the eldest brother was working, she helped. I once heard the girl say that Tan, Shu or something, she thought about it for a long time, but could not remember. They said she was very pitiful. But the specifics are what happened, I don't remember. When something happens to the Bai family, where are they? Master Ching shook his head. I don't know, anyway, he is not with us. Then Tan Yanling is the Madam Ho, and the woman who died in the back street is her mother. Master Ching said firmly, I will definitely recognize her when I see her again. Ah, do you remember Aunt Ziyun? Is she the eldest brother's daughter? Is she Yubai's half-sister? No, no way, although my eldest brother is romantic and has repeatedly broken my sister-in-law's heart, he will never have an affair with my sister-in-law's niece. But she looks so much like Yubai. Then she must have plotted against my eldest brother. When you said, that makes sense. On the day you went to Chi's house to measure clothes, Mrs. Tan must have seen you first, so she didn't show up. Within 2 days, she attacked you. But she has given birth to a child, how can she still marry the Marquis? Is the Marquis crazy? Master Ching blurted out, feeling a little embarrassed. When you said, I have been in the house for more than half a year and I still don't know that she is not an ordinary woman, Yubai knew that he had such a half-sister, but he was not happy at all, and, this matter is from beginning to end. Is it a plot? Master Ching was also unsure. If you find another chance, let me take a look secretly. I will definitely recognize her. If it is really her, our aunt and nephew will find an opportunity to kill her. Master Ching's face was full of hatred. Meaning? Yubai also nodded bitterly. Take good care of yourself first. When you thought, if it's really her, it's not just as simple as killing her, bury her with the honors of a marquis, she's so beautiful. I came in, your highnesses know that Master Ching is awake, and they said they would send a doctor over soon. When you stood up immediately, I still have something to answer to your 2 highnesses. I wonder if you are free. Madam, please come with me. When you said, Master Ching, don't get out of bed yet, wait until the doctor comes to take a look. Master Ching said, I have to take a bath first and then let the doctor see. The prince has been ill for a long time, so he especially likes to hear news that people have recovered from their illness. Seeing when you come in, he smiled and asked, how is Master Ching? He responded with a gentle salute, Your Highness, Master Ching has clear thinking. He can see, listen, speak, and move his hands and feet, but he has no strength. The prince sighed, my head is injured, it's great to be able to do this. Taijun snorted and looked at Wen's words critically. Wen Yu's expression became solemn, Your Highness, today. She told what she found at the Queen's place. Qi Li, the prince was startled and lowered his eyelids. Taijun was a little confused at first, but slowly, his expression became serious. Wen Yu asked, "Do your two highnesses know this person?" The prince said softly, "The son of King Xiang, Lu Qiliu, the king of Yongchang County." Prince Xiang, this time it was Wen Yu's turn to be surprised. "Do you know King Xiang?" Taijun said in a vicious tone. Wen Yu was startled and immediately said, "Have you never heard of such a prince?" The prince gave his son a reproachful look, meaning don't scare people. "Is it him in the imperial study?" Wen Yu didn't bother to argue with this person. The prince said, "One autumn hunting year, King Xiang disappeared. Princess Yang was the highest born among all the princesses, but it was a pity that her father and brother were no longer alive. She was very arrogant. She heard that she did not get along with King Xiang, so she took Li Qilai to live in her natal home in Zishan. In the courtyard, Prince Yang was the only son. Not long after his death, Princess Yang also died. Prince Yongchang was very weak and was protected very carefully by the princess. After the princess died, no one even mentioned him. I only saw him twice when he was a child." "Father, is it really him?" Taijun pulled away from the past. "Should be." The grandson suddenly stood up and walked back and forth in the room, sneering all the time. He couldn't say the unpleasant things in front of Wen Yu, but he couldn't suppress the rage in his heart. Wen Yu said, "Your Highness Taijun, please don't worry. If it is really him, why is the emperor hiding it?" Taijun sneered, "You're just trying to be mysterious." The prince squinted his eyes and looked out the door. The emperor's hand was afraid that he would touch his stupid son. "Then, one me and one Yongchang. When I die, it will be him. The emperor will definitely try his best to cultivate him." Qi Huan. Let's start with the retired masters, especially Yang Feng. The emperor must have asked them to teach him. When you thought about that person and helped analyze, this young man has an ordinary appearance, is not tall, and does not look like he has practiced martial arts like His Highness Taijun. His expression is gentle and slightly calm. He doesn't look like a child. I haven't seen much in Perda. I'm afraid I've traveled a lot. Yuan Zhou, the prince said. The emperor stayed in this place when he was young. At that time, he was still a prince. There are water and dry roads there. There are grain fields and mountains. It can be said that there are many things to do. It is rich and peaceful, and it is not far from the capital. Moreover, it is there the chief officer can talk to the emperor. Just as he was talking, Qi Wu arrived. When he entered the door, he heard that Master Qing was awake and thought Wen Yu was over there. As soon as they left, Master Qing was taking a bath and Zuzu was accompanying Lanzhou. Yubai is working and everyone is happy. And his wife went to live with the prince and grandson. As soon as he entered the door, Taijun pulled him and whispered something. The prince said to Wen Yu, "Qi Huan is lucky to have the support of you and your wife. His temperament is a bit awkward, but it is just because he has been around me for many years and is frightened and sensitive. Wen Yu, don't argue with him. Your Highness the Crown Prince, you have to tell His Highness the grandson, don't worry about a little girl like me." Wen Yu was dissatisfied. The prince chuckled. "You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart." Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 383. Chapter 383. The Bai family is here. The night before, it was already late at night, and news came that Mu Bo and Zhang Yuan were back. Wen Yu was so excited that she didn't sleep all night. Qi Wu looked at her like a little duck that just hit the water in spring, lively and cheerful. So he hugged her and pestered her twice. The next day, Wen Yu asked MRSG to go with her. MRSG took Bauer with her. Just as the group was about to get in the car, news came, Chi-ho and Chi-yuduan arrived home at noon. MRSG listened expressionlessly and led Bauer into the car. I found that I was full of all kinds of hopes for the news I wanted to know. Even if the Chi family was ruined, I would still laugh with others. She also said this to Wen Yu, who grinned bitterly. MRS-10 was happy from the bottom of her heart when she heard that her son was coming in. I also heard that MRSG and the others had gone out early in the morning. She rolled her eyes and said, "What are you doing for people to see? It's best to go to the East Palace again." As a result, after a while, someone came back carrying a guard with a broken leg. It turned out that the fifth master's men had broken his leg. 7 orifices were filled with smoke, and then he thought again, don't be angry, you are going to come back. Just wait and see how my son will deal with you." Chi Wu, who had just finished beating someone, stayed calm with his mother and wife. After last night and just now, he felt a little more depressed after a few days of depression. Arrived at the East Palace Villa, Wen Yu saw Mu Bo and Zhang Yuan in front of him and could not recognize them. They both look alike. He is dark and thin. When he smiles, only his teeth are white. He is also wearing the same clothes. "How did you end up like this?" Mubo is not good at words, tired. Zhang Yuan said, "We brothers are really exhausted this time. We have been on the road. Let me tell you first, it is all good news." This is really good news for Zhang Yuan. He has been flattering Mubo all the way. On the way back, he said that he would not marry Mu Ling until the Qi family's affairs came to an end. He also made a vow. Mubo kicked him twice, but said, "You can consider it." "What are you looking for? Tell me quickly." When you didn't know what Zhang Yuan was thinking, so he reminded him when he saw that he was dazed. So Zhang Yuan started talking. The two of them left the capital and went straight to Niwia village. Niwia village is actually a very small village, located at the foot of the mountain, with only a dozen households. The mountains behind are very steep, infested with wild animals, and produce valuable medicinal materials. Therefore, the people in this village basically make a living by hunting, gathering, and growing medicines. The road is not easy to walk, so not many outsiders get in. The two of them went, and the villagers looked at them and brought out fruit wine and entertained them warmly. But as soon as they started talking, their hearts became cold. It turns out that there was a wildfire in Niwia village many years ago. Most of the people in the village were burned to death, and the entire village was deserted. Outsiders were afraid to come. 2 years later, the medicinal materials here were really attractive, so some people invited monks and Taoist priests to perform rituals, remove the original traces, build new houses, and thrive here. So, almost no one knows what Mubo and I want to inquire about. Speaking of this, Zhang Yuan became jealous. "I saw my grandfather's grave. Mr. Ho left money in the county. Later, my father always sent some. The county allocated the money to the village, and the people in the village helped maintenance. Therefore, the tomb looks very neat, but no one in the local area knows the reason for this." There was no news here, and the two of them did not dare to delay, so they went to Zijing again. When we arrived in Zijing, we went to the villa Master Qing. "Guess what, your third sister Bai Yaki lives there." "What, third sister?" Master Qing was dumbfounded. "Yes. Your third sister lived there with your eldest sister's son. When your eldest sister knew something was wrong with the Bai family, she hurriedly went to find help. The car overturned on the road and she died. Your second sister was just getting married after she got married. She was about to give birth to a baby, and she was so sad that she lost 2 lives. Your third sister's mother-in-law disliked her, and she was so stubborn that she asked your third brother-in-law to write a letter of divorce, and she wanted to return to Fengxiang Villa. But your third brother-in-law is a very good person, so he invited himself out of the house and followed him out. After what happened to the Bai family, Many people expressed gratitude for the Bai family's kindness to this land over the years and helped your third sister maintain the villa. After the warehouse was bombed, it caught fire. Up to now, the place where the warehouse is located is still in ruins. There are some who have been favored by the Bai family, and some loyal servants who live with your third sister. The money everyone saved due to their busy work was used to maintain the house. After so many years, although it is dilapidated, the appearance of the entire villa can still be seen clearly. Master Ching and Yubai looked at each other, both of them were surprised and happy. Master Ching, your eldest sister's son is named Yang Xian. He is said to be very smart with the Bai family. He has a sister and they are married. But why would the Yang family let their brother and sister go back to the Bai family? Mr. Yang has remarried, and when he has a stepmother, he has a stepfather. When Yang Xian was only 7 or 8 years old, he took his loyal servant and sister to Zijing, and your third sister adopted him. It's just that the stepmother was too bad. Followed by and made trouble. He took the scholar exam secretly. Later, when he wanted to take the exam, his stepmother tried his best to stop him. After the incident in the Bai family, your third sister looked for you. But the couple were kicked out by their husband's family and had no money. After searching to no avail, the Yang Xian brothers and sisters came, and they stopped running out. After learning the news about you and Mr. Yubai, she cried so much that she couldn't hold back her breath, and asked her subordinates to tell you, "You are good, Mr. Yubai is good. She will be at home, waiting for you to come back." Master Ching and Yubai held hands, nodded and cried. The Bai family still has descendants, they still have a family. At noon, Chi Ho followed Chi Yuduan into the house. It turns out that Marquis Chi left the capital in a rage. He did not take the official route, but took a shortcut. So those who went to look for him failed to catch up. He waited for his third son in Yanzhou. Chi Yuduan is known as the scholar in the army. He really looks like a scholar. White face, black beard, gentle expression. The color of his clothes is light and elegant, and he speaks slowly and softly. He is not as tall as Chi Yi, and he does not have the military aura about him. Bows, swords, and horse steps are definitely not comparable, but the strategy is not weak. Having been with Mr. Ho for many years, the two of them cooperated well. Hitting his head, the Marquis was in a bad mood and walked back without worrying about the matter in the capital. When they arrived at the city gate, they met the servants from the mansion who had gone to report the news again. When Chi Ho heard the news, his face was as dark as water and he was furious. The impression of a harmonious and peaceful home turned out to be worse than others. He left the house with his front foot, but actually killed someone with his back foot. Chi Yuduan was also a little surprised. "Father, I'm afraid this is also related to Liu's failure to manage the family well." "Don't worry yet, we'll take a look at it when we get home." When he came back this time, he only brought 20 sergeants with him. Generally, when military attaches return to Beijing, the number of manpower they bring with them is regulated. In order to avoid suspicion, he showed even less publicity. "But because I had a few important things to do when I came back this time, I followed some secretly." Arrived at the gate of Qi Mansion, MS-10 was already waiting in front. She heard footsteps. "Yuduo," her voice trembled. Today, MS-10 dressed up specially, put on makeup, decent clothes, and jewelry, trying to give her son a good impression. "Mother," Chi Yuduan walked in, lifted up his robe and knelt down. He was also a little excited. Mr. Ten ignored others and rushed towards him, put his hands on his shoulders, and looked at him carefully. "Son, you are finally back." After saying that, he started to cry. Chi Yuyi stood beside him, feeling a little embarrassed. Chi Yuduan smiled. "Mother, you don't take good care of your son, but you cry alone, your eyes are filled with tears, and you can still see clearly." Mrs. Tan quickly wiped her tears and helped him up. Get up, get up. Are you injured? Don't worry, mother, there are no injuries at all. My son is taken care of by his father and protected by soldiers, so where can he get hurt? He turned his head and shouted with a smile, brother. Chiyuyi calmed down and said, third brother, you have had a hard journey. I haven't seen you for a long time. Big brother looking back, we two brothers should have a good drink. Mrs. Tan quickly said, you two have reached your age, you are not allowed to drink like before. The two brothers both laughed, okay. Listen to mother. The atmosphere is peaceful, a true mother is kind and her son is filial. Isn't this good? How could someone die? Seeing their mother and son being affectionate, Chi-ho still had the dark cloud on his face. What's going on with Mrsu and Aunt Lu? The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 384. Chapter 384. So life-saving. Zhang Yuan finished expressing his emotions and started talking about business again. There lived a man in the villa. He was once a boy at the best inn in Zhejiang. His family was also favored by the Bai family. At that time, he was still young and did not understand what happened. He gradually realized it after the Bai family was destroyed. So, I really learned a lot from him. The person who came to handle the Bai family case booked the inn where he was staying. No one in the store is allowed to go out. Don't talk about things in the store, it's very strict. Anyone who violates the rules will be beaten. The person in charge is an adult named Zhang, not a local official. It is said that his father is a second-rank official in the capital. Mr. Zhang is in his early 30s, very arrogant, and always speaks his mind. Originally, the local prefect and county magistrate had been with the Bai family for many years, and their relationship was not close, but harmonious. The Bai family did not pay less taxes, and they often produced products to support them, so they were unwilling to take this step. But Mr. Zhang slapped the table and glared at them, and they did not dare to say anything. Mr. Zhang is accompanied by a young man. Many things were given by that young man. A chef in the inn said that the young man had the accent of his hometown and was from near Huaishan in Yuanzhou. Master Zhang called the young man Li Kun. Li Kun, Wen Yu and Chi Wu looked at each other. It turns out that this person appeared so early. MRSG has been listening carefully, but she is a little confused. Looking at my son and daughter-in-law, they want to hide something from me. Zhang Yuan said, it seemed that things were going smoothly, and the two of them were very happy. But unexpectedly, the villa suddenly exploded without any precautions, and many people from the government died. The matter was too big. I heard Lord Zhang sorted around the stolen silver treasures and then reluctantly put the matter down. But the man named Li Kun disappeared inexplicably, and Mr. Zhang had people chasing him everywhere. Regarding what you asked me to ask, if there is a woman named Tan in the Bai family, I actually found out. 10. MRSG's eyes lit up. Master Ching and Yu Bai have been listening quietly. Zhang Yuan said, MRS Bai's surname is Tan. The Tan family has no relatives in the area, but many years ago, relatives of MRS Bai's natal family who were in trouble came to seek shelter and were taken in by her. They were a mother and daughter. The mother's name was Tan Jia. My daughter's name is Tan Yanling. MRSG exclaimed, is it really her? When you nodded to her mother-in-law. Zhang Yuan continued, on weekdays, people can see Tan Jia. And Tan Yanling lives in the villa, just like the girl from the Bai family. We only see each other occasionally. After the incident in the Bai family, it came out that Tan Yanling was diagnosed as pregnant. What? MRSG couldn't control it anymore and screamed. When you smiled and patted her mother-in-law on the arm. She went to see a doctor. It was too much for a big girl to explain, the doctor told his wife when he got back. It was only after the Bai family's incident that the news came out. This mother and daughter were not affected by the Bai family's affairs. Some people saw when they ran away, they never went back. Some people say that the child belongs to Mr. Bai. But some people said it was impossible, because the woman was asking a matchmaker to marry her daughter, and she also said that Mr. Bai and his wife wanted a dowry of 1,000 taels. Some people also saw her meeting the man named Li Kun privately several times in the tea house. Maybe the child was Li Kun's. Master Ching said to MRSG, "Madam, what Tan Yanling is carrying is the current Aunt Ziyuan. She should be my eldest brother's. But, madam, although my eldest brother is suave, he is really not a bad person. Never get along with your wife's natal niece. We sisters have seen how the eldest brother treated her, and he treated her like a little girl with a poor background. Therefore, this must be her plan." MRSG nodded, seeing Master Ching and Yubai, "How can I know your eldest brother's character? Besides, I have been dealing with the Tan family for many years, and I know that this is her style of doing things." Master Ching gritted his teeth and said, "Her real name is Li Daniu. Yanling was given to her by her eldest brother. She really hated it, her eldest sister-in-law's small act of kindness." Li Daniu, MRSG looked at Wen Yu again. 80% of Wen Yu and Master Ching knew about these things, so they were not surprised. Zhang Yuan continued, "After asking for a long time, we only found this information, so we went to the area near Huaishan Mountain. No one knew about the woman named Tan, but when we asked about Li Kun, many people knew about him. Because he used to be a popular figure in the local area. The 17-year-old scholar had been to Li's house several times during the reign of the county magistrate. It was a pity that he was asked to accompany him when he was taking the imperial examination. A fraud case was discovered, and even the scholar's reputation was taken away. His father married into the Li family. Mrs. Li was sterile and Li Kun was the son of a second wife. This exemplary wife is Tan Xia. After his accident, Mrs. Li went crazy with anger and kicked him out of the house. This is too bizarre. MRSG murmured. After Tan Xia gave birth to Li Kun, Mrs. Li gave her to a poor bachelor in the family, and then gave birth to Li Daniu. The man was useless, drank and beat his wife, and wanted to sell Li Daniu to a brothel. Therefore, Tan Xia escaped with Li Daniu and ran to Zijing to find his relatives. So that's how it is. Yes, what's even more unimaginable is that that man turned out to be a long-lived man. He lived to be over 80 before he died, and he yelled about these things all day long. So, decades later, we can still find out. The ins and outs of these things have been found out. But couldn't figure it out. How could Tan Yanling meet the Marquis and ask him to take her to Beijing? So, I returned to Niujiazhuang. This time the Chinese New Year is approaching and many people are returning to their hometowns. I met an old man named Niu 11 who returned to his hometown to visit his grave. We finally know everything. Everyone was waiting for Zhang Yuan to continue, but Zhang Yuan suddenly burst into tears. "My grandfather was killed by this old witch Tan." "What?" Wen Yu and Qi Wu were both shocked. Zhang Yuan was sobbing, unable to make a sound. "Thinking of my grandmother's early death, my father becoming disabled, and my brother being busy outside. I am following such a beast again, humph." After he knew everything, he thought about it. "Qi Yu, just wait for me." After a pause, he added, "It turns out that Tan Yanling and Tan Shi escaped from Zijing and suffered a lot in the end. They almost starved to death and were rescued by an old hunter. The old hunter's wife and children were no longer alive, so he saved them and asked Tan Xia to be his wife. With nowhere to go, they followed him back to the mountain village. In the village, Tan Yanling gave birth to a girl. This Niu 11 has 3 brothers. He is short, ugly, thin, and has no ability. He saw that Tan Yanling gave birth to a daughter before getting married, and felt that he might be able to marry her. He secretly watched her, followed her to the latrine, opened the window and peeked at her bathing, etc. Of course, he only said this after 5 glasses of fruit wine. The old hunter went into the mountains with others to hunt. Tan Yanling didn't have enough milk, so Tan Xia took the baby down to the village to find milk. Tan Yanling left the village to go shopping in the town. Niu 11 is still following behind. But she found that she met 2 injured people ahead and took them home. Cleaned the wound and cooked. One of the young men, who was richly dressed, was seriously injured and lost a lot of blood. He would wake up and faint at other times. Tan Xia came back with the child in her arms, but Tan Yanling asked her to take the child to the village to stay for one night. My grandfather saw all this and thought that she was afraid that the gangsters would chase her and the child would be unsafe, so he told her that he had left marks along the way and that rescue would arrive tomorrow at most. Early the next morning, Tan Yanling asked my grandfather to help fetch water. Then, the 2 of them walked a little further away from the house. She took advantage of her grandfather's unpreparedness and brutally chopped his head with a hatchet. When her grandfather reacted and struck back, she was also injured. However, she was very fierce and slashed at my grandfather's head regardless of the situation. Grandfather was already injured, and he kept carrying the marquis on his back. Before his physical strength could recover, he was finally defeated and died. So, that's how she saved Mr. Ho's life, MRSG said expressionlessly. Zhang Yuan wiped his tears. Niu 11 saw the injured person's dress and style, and secretly scolded Tan Yanling for being snobbish, but refused to leave, so he took it all in his eyes. He said that the woman was like an evil spirit. He was so frightened that he ran away and never dared to go back again. A few days later, he heard that Tan Yanling had gone somewhere, but Tan Xia and the little girl stayed behind. Later, Niu 11 was adopted by an uncle in his family who had no sons, and left Niujiazhuang. A few years later, Niujiazhuang suddenly caught fire, and his brothers and the villagers all died. But no one mentioned Mrs. Tan and the little girl. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 385. Chapter 385 The Final Challenge. In Qi Mansion, Mrs. Tan seemed to be speechless after being asked by the Marquis. She looked at Qi Yuyi, pressed Qi Yuduan on the chair, and then said, "Master Marquis, your question made me not know where to start. I also don't know, how can I live a good life in the Qi family, how did it become what it is now after decades?" Then she threw Mrs. down, and Aunt Lu was accused of practicing witchcraft. She went to check and found the evidence. When Mrs. suffered from dystocia, she told how she invited the best doctors and midwives, as well as Mrs.'s family, and then Aunt Lu to interrogate her. "Mr. Marquis, the witnesses and material evidence are all here. Is it wrong to say that I kidnapped Aunt Lu and asked if she was guilty? She even admitted her guilt." Qi Yuyi listened and nodded in agreement. "In the end, Ms. Kui, and when you kidnapped Xiao Yun and the kitten, Ms. Kui even beat Xiao Yun in front of me without any reason." Qi Yuyi was so angry that his face turned livid. Tan's tears were hanging on her face. "Master Ho, you know that I was born in a poor family and have no relatives. Treat Xiao Yun like my own daughter." Over there, MRSG felt that this experience was both incredible and reasonable. "When you said, she must have told Mr. Ho that a gangster was coming." She and Zhang Huiwei resisted desperately. Zhang Huiwei died and she was injured. The gangster escaped, and no one knew about it anyway. Qi Wu nodded. "Maybe, he will also say that he was alone and broke the defense of men and women when he rescued the Marquis. Or Zhang Weiwei had some promises, etc." But MRSG said, "These are not difficult to understand. It is not difficult for the Ho mansion to place a savior, but why did it come to the point of marrying her? Moreover, the mother-in-law really gave way to her. When you thought, there is doubt about the cause of my grandmother's death. Is there anyone around my grandmother in the house? MRSG shook her head. It will be 20 years after I entered the mansion. Where is the person still there? When you said, my mother has seen what she is capable of. Lord Marquis is practicing martial arts and fighting. Where has he experienced this? Master Ching also shook his head and sighed. Although this woman is like a wolf and a snake, I can't help but accept it. She is so good. MRSG smiled bitterly. If she couldn't do it, how could I be separated from my husband and eldest son by her? The only daughter of the Kui family and the eldest daughter-in-law of the Ho mansion, she doesn't even have the power to manage the house. She is really good at that. Got it? MRS-10 continued to choke with sobs. Yuyi has been accompanying Xiao Yun these past few days, just because he was afraid that she would come up in one breath and commit suicide. Chi Yuyi testified, "Father, this is basically what happened." MRS-10 looked at Chi Yuyi gratefully, and the little cat, is there a girl better behaved than her in the world? I have always respected MRS Kui as my aunt and uncle. I was scared this time, so when I get back, I will got a high fever, Mr. Ho. Suddenly, MRS-10 started to fight for the title. Yuduan doesn't want that title anymore. I don't want him to take it. Give it to Yuyi, no. Just give it to Chi Yang. Whatever you do, I don't want him to have it, too. I just want my loved ones around me to live well, she cried. Oh, my poor Minghui. That's the wife I personally married to Xiao. How should I explain to brother Xiao when he comes back, I deserve to be treated well before he leaves. I betrayed the trust they both placed in me. The whole chanting and beating made the Marquis so stunned that he even forgot to get angry. Chi Yuyi has never seen Tan looking like this, and he is a bit stupid. As for Chi Yuduan, even though he is usually calm, in fact, he is extremely sensitive inside. When he was a child, within his social circle, his mother's background was the lowest. It was not low, but very unbearable. The arrogance in the bones of his friends and the casual contempt for him were like thorns in his heart. When you ask him to do something, you can't help but put yourself in a subordinate position. Including secretly following King Xiang and doing shameful things for him. At this time, seeing my mother crying like an ordinary village woman, the bad feelings I had when I was a child came to my mind. He has been sleeping rough in the northwest wind for so many years, and he finally stood up on his own, and he is about to achieve his wish. His mother is. He looked ugly. He took 2 steps up to pat MRS-10, then turned to Chi-Ho and said, "Father, we men have been away from home for several years, how could we be like this? Mother, is there a misunderstanding here? If mother makes up nonsense, thunder will strike from heaven." MS-10 was still excited. "Mother," Chi Yuduan and Chi Yuyi both shouted. Yan Ling, Mr. Ho was angry and annoyed. "Mr. Ho, MRSU has lost 2 lives for 1 life. She is a poor child. Her parents' family is having a hard time, and her brother and sister-in-law are not living up to expectations. She finally married a good husband. After a few years of comfortable life, she saw that she had a son. I have been at ease in this life, but it's gone like this." Chi Yuduan pressed her hard again. He knew his mother's purpose, but he was unwilling to take this path. MS-10 stopped. She actually just wanted to anger the Marquis. "Master Ho, I have told you many times, but you always don't care, and you even get angry with me, but look at this house, ever since the Wen family came in. She was the one. She ordered people to pull Xiao Yun away. Xiao Yun even lost her shoes during the pushing and shoving all the way." At this point, Tan's face, which was covered with a veil, became a little distorted. I won't kill you. My life will never get any better." Chi Yuyi stupidly followed him. "That's right. Father, that woman is a lunatic. She even told her son." He was so angry that day that he forgot about it. She said her son will regret it sooner or later. What do you think his son can regret? Mrs. Tan added, in the past, Ms. Kui had a more cheerful temper. Although she did not agree with Yuyi's temperament, she could still get along like an ordinary couple. But look at it now. Xiao Wu dares to fight against his father. Dare. Use a knife to kill the guards you gave me, Lord Marquis, maybe I will be killed by them when you come back one day. Mother. Unless they are possessed by evil spirits, no one in the world would dare to do this. Chi Yuduan first gave his personality. Possessed, yes. Just possessed. Mrs. Tan looked at Chi Yuduan, and finally her son understood him. Master Ho, no matter what the cause is, and no matter who is at fault, I, Kui and Wen Yu will never get better. This is my concubine. I mentioned them for the last time. From now on, I don't want to get involved with them in anything, and I won't have the slightest intention to protect them again. I saved you, and you gave me the dignity I never expected. Let's settle this matter. Now, for the sake of me being in the Chi family and doing my best for decades, please don't embarrass me anymore. When it came to this, Chi Ho had no choice but to sigh, I'll think about it again. Okay. Mr. Marquis, we haven't seen each other for a long time. We have some personal things to say, so I took Chi in first. If it's appropriate, you two can drink and chat later. Over there, things are almost settled. MRSG said, we people, go back now and tell your grandfather all this, and this old witch will be finished. Wen Yu and Chi Wu looked at each other, but they felt that it was not that easy. Chi Wuxian said, my grandfather's identity is there, and he is very young. He can't recognize these scandals, can he? Don't dare to admit it? How can he be willing to treat such a cruel, vicious, and despicable woman like a monkey? MRSG disagreed. When you agreed with Chi Wu, it's a done deal, their son will inherit the whole mansion. I'm afraid the Marquis has been planning this matter for a long time. He can't bear the loss. And the death of the first wife, may be discussed by others. Did he hook up with the Tan family and then kill his first wife? I'm afraid, he may have killed the Tan family secretly, but Chi Yuduan is still the one who inherited the title. Chi Wu nodded, there are mistakes, but they are all his sons anyway. Moreover, I'm afraid he will strictly restrain us. This article is coming to an end. The pace is too fast, but it cannot be any slower. Don't worry, everyone, the series about the old witch will definitely be over. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 386. Chapter 386 Who will win? Chi Yuduan helped Mr. Tan walk back. Mrs. Lu took Chi Yu and Mrs. Zhu and waited at the door of the back hall. Seeing them coming, I quickly saluted and said hello. No one could tell anything from the faces of the mother and son. Chi Yuduan said to Mrs. Lu gently, go and get some food. I'll talk to my mother first. Chi Yu, you're in the capital, so you didn't make your grandmother anxious or angry, right? Chi Yu hasn't spoken yet. Tan said, Chi Yu is fine. Don't scare him. He is suffering in the northwest with you, and he should have fun when he returns to the capital. Young people, only after enough trouble can you get down to work. Chi Yuduan smiled, and the mother and son entered the room and asked the servants to leave. Finally taking off all guard, Tan asked with concern, is everything going well? Everything went well. Of the 6 leading generals over there, 3 are purely my people. My father is devoted to me, so there is no problem. Mother is worried. If the emperor is in trouble, it will be difficult for the Marquis to handle it. Chi Yuduan smiled, the emperor may not be clear about the fact that he has not established a heir for so many years. As long as the matter does not go out of control, he will not care about it. Moreover, father and I have already discussed the method. When my son comes back, he will hand in the report, big and small. My father will take the opportunity to give up the throne. So mother, stability is very important now, don't make trouble. MS-10 nodded with satisfaction. But after a while, she couldn't help but talk about things at home, especially the changes in the family before and after when you came in. She talked about them one by one for a long time. Chi Yuduan heard this, but he felt very disapproving. When he was a child, although he felt that he was looked down upon by others because of his mother's low background, he admired her from the bottom of his heart for being able to arrange everything well. She can stand up among ladies. And in front of his father, he is much more popular than his eldest brother. It can be said that the father's ability to support him to rise to the top despite pressure from all aspects is the result of the joint efforts of the mother and son. But now, maybe she is old, maybe she is mature. Listening to my mother say this again, I actually feel that her vision is limited after all, and all she cares about is the trivial matters in the back house. All kinds of tricks are used, but the purpose is unclear. Seeing my mother still talking at length, she was sometimes happy and sometimes angry. Sometimes his eyes are rolling around, sometimes he has a vicious look on his face, he keeps mouthing and doesn't even seem to be breathing. He didn't know that Tan had too many things in his heart. Performing every day was so tiring and boring. The key point is that there is no one she can talk to at will, not even her close maid or girl, who knows what she really thinks. Now that you have caught your closest son, how can you still control him? Chi Yuduan listened for a long time, and finally became impatient and interrupted Tan. Mother, my son has just said that the title will be obtained smoothly soon. Everything else is unimportant. Except for the title corresponding to the title. Property and other things were not taken seriously by his son. The person on the other end is his father's eldest son after all, and if he does something too ugly, people will criticize him. Do you understand that the gain outweighs the loss? Mrs. 10 was very unhappy when her son intercepted and denied her. But when we first met, it was hard to refute. And, mother, there are some things that I can't tell you clearly right now. You have to believe in your son. If what you are planning to succeed is successful, then you will not only inherit the title from your ancestors, but your son will be able to earn a higher position on his own. In the future, passed down from my son. Your name will also be mentioned heavily. After Chi Yuduan finished speaking, he could not hide his inner pride. The man said when he went to the Northwest 2 years ago, if he succeeds, he will be promised the position of Duke of our country. This time I received a secret message halfway and it has already begun. Really, Tan's eyes lit up, and she felt very good just listening to it. What are you trying to do to lie to me? Okay. After a while, MS-10 said, it's just that it's not easy for your mother and me to get to where we are today. Can a poor girl come to Madam Ho and succeed just by sitting and waiting? Why does my mother pay so much attention to those few? That's because my mother has done many cruel things. If they dig out the past. Chi Yuduan was not surprised. Mother, what major event does not have a conspiracy behind it? But only the one who laughs at the end has the right to make a conclusion. But, if the lady in front of your father died because of me, where are your hands? Mrs. 10 looked at Chi Yuduan with bright eyes. Chi Yuduan didn't take it seriously. Don't say that there have been no witnesses or physical evidence in the past so many years. Even if there is, do you think my father is willing to avenge the original wife and bring chaos to the Chi family? Let me, who has been training for many years, become a step forward. A waste of time? Let him lose face? What a joke. Even though Mrs. 10 nodded, she still felt a little uneasy. Chi Yuduan felt something was wrong. Mother, apart from what you just said, is there anything else you are hiding from your son? Ms. 10 hesitated for a while, but then she briefly explained what happened to the Bai family. But it only talked about the downfall of the Bai family and the care they took for their mother and daughter. But her admiration and plot against Mr. Bai, her being deceived by Li Kun into being an accomplice, and her pregnancy and giving birth to a daughter were hidden. Because my cousin reported the news to me in advance, I ran away, otherwise I would have died. But if Master Ching saw me, he wouldn't bite me to death together with Wen Yu. This is not a good reputation. So, I was ready to kill her, but I didn't know if she would wake up. Chi Yuduan was a little surprised by this incident, and thought for a while, we are not at odds with the Kui family anyway, and that Master Ching has no chance to come to you. My son will pay attention, and it is not difficult to deal with such a person. But this Mr. Zhou you are talking about. He is a cousin of mine. We were separated from Zijing and met again in the capital. I had not yet married your father at that time, and he went to Beijing for scientific examination. Later, I became MRS Ho, and he became the minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Over the years, although we have not recognized each other openly, we have supported each other secretly. Now that I think about it, he helps me most. Come back this time and meet him, right? That's a capable man. Okay, Chi Yuduyuan responded. Mom, is there anything else? No more. Mr. Tan shook his head. There were some things that even he couldn't say. If you have anything to do, you can tell your son. Your son will help you clear everything, Chi Yuduan asked again. Mother understands. Look at this. MRS 10 picked up a small box. This is poison. It was the poison I gave to the man in front of me. It is colorless and tasteless, just like dying from a heart attack. Even the murderer is checked. Don't come out. I'll give you 2 bottles in case you need them. Okay, Chi Yuduan answered. I feel at ease when you come back. I haven't felt relaxed these days. When you reach this age, just enjoy yourself, leave everything to your son. Mr. Tan likes to hear this. Chi Yuduan returned to the house and chatted with Mr. Liu for a while. Liu's words are more to the point and impartial. After Chi Yuduan heard this, he felt even more that his mother acted excessively and liked to play tricks too much. Even some much ado about nothing. Mrs. Liu said, Mother may have underestimated Kui and Wen Yu, so she got angry and kicked rocks. I tried to persuade her. Also, Chi Wu, you should pay special attention to him. I feel that what he does is too mysterious. Besides, he should be very close to the prince and grandson. At this moment, Chi Yuduan was attentive. Who is Chi Yang at the other end? It seems that we are really born to be mortal enemies, and we are at odds with each other in business and private matters. He recalled the 12-year-old boy who was too beautiful to be true. Wearing an ostentatious hunting suit, he was surrounded by a few silly boys from the Kui family so that no one else could see him. It's a pity that if he didn't succeed in his plan, King Xiang would never be seen again. It was almost certainly Qi Yang who did it, but he couldn't find out. And even if it was really him, not only could it not be revealed, but it would also have to be concealed and dealt with for him. Because that would bring the whole Qi family in. That little bastard. How dare he? How is it done? Originally, when I came back, I had already discussed with my father to get the crown prince's position first. As a result, he became frightened and hid again. After thinking about it, Qi Yuduan smiled, let's see who wins. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 387. Chapter 387, Go Your Own Way. At the East Palace Villa, several people were still analyzing, feeling more and more that they were in a dilemma. When you took the tea handed over by Chi Wu and said, although those who did the evil are all from the Tan family, It is my grandfather who bears the consequences. I really can't say what he will choose. Chi Wu said, as far as the witness is concerned, although Yubai looks very similar to the ant, this kind of thing is not accidental. Master Ching has a close relationship with Au, and after many years, his appearance has changed drastically, and she and Au have changed a lot. The place where my grandfather met is hundreds of miles away from Xian, so the other party has many reasons to refute. If my grandfather continues to be partial. Zhang Yuan nodded, that Niu 11, we wrote down his confession, found witnesses, and asked him to take his fingerprints. But judging from his appearance, there is no tomorrow. In those days, everyone in Niojia village he is dead. As a witness, it will not be easy for him to prove himself if he is forced by power. Chi Wu said to MRSG, Mother, if this matter is made clear but cannot be settled firmly, I am afraid that we will become sinners in the world. MRSG couldn't help but feel discouraged, then the investigation will be in vain. When you couldn't think of a good idea for a moment, so when you remembered, as for Mr. Zhou, is he Li Kun? What is Li Kun's replacement identity? Let's see if we can start from this aspect. MRSG nodded, then you continue to investigate. However, you two don't go home yet. I'm afraid that if you enter the house, the old fool will lock you in the house and won't let you go until the matter is settled. Chi Wu first shook his head, my son has a lot of things going on recently, so being locked up is not a good idea. When you was worried about her mother-in-law, how about you don't go back and live together outside? MRSG said, what happened? Besides, what do they dare to do to me? It's not that we are afraid of Mr. Ho, but your investigation is more important. Besides, I have to work as an internal response at home. Bao Shao, it's not appropriate to go anywhere else. You should think of something quickly. Mother, you mustn't tell anyone when you go back, lest you jump over the wall. I know, I'll go tell your grandfather first. Thinking of the news she was about to tell her father, she couldn't sit still and pulled Bao away. At home, General Kui is reading a letter from Marquis Chi. Chi Ho wrote on it what happened recently at home, showing that he was disappointed with everything. The Chi family has come this far. He is the head of the family, and the biggest sin is his. However, he intends to go his own way. To give up the title to Chi Yuduan, he had preliminary discussions with Chi Yuduan on how to deal with the Chi family's property, and there would be a proper way that would be acceptable to all parties. But if Kui Fengying and the Kui family don't accept it, then he will agree to whatever they want. General Kui looked at the letter written by Chi Ho with obvious excitement and anger. The handwriting was sloppy and the ink was uneven. Keep your language short and firm. At that moment, the angry beard poked at Lao Gao and cursed bitterly, this old bastard. Then let Fengying go home, what's the big deal? He immediately called his eldest son and his wife, threw the letter to them, and yelled at Chi Ho, you old fool. Clean up the yard quickly and bring your sister back with great fanfare. I want both Chi Xiao and Chi Yang to have the surname Kui. Hey. He doesn't care about me, but he has found two capable grandsons for the Kui family. Even my ancestors will praise me. At this moment, MRSG came back with Bao. Oh my dear, why did you come back by yourself? You have to wait at home for your elder brother and sister-in-law to pick you up, that's how you look good. MRSG was confused, why pick me up? What's the point of honor? Her eldest brother silently handed over the letter, waiting for his sister to get angry. Unexpectedly, my sister took one look at it and sneered, threw the letter on the table and asked the girl to take Bao. Bao goes to play with sister Yuan Yuan. Then, she was very excited and told everyone about the incidents she had investigated. A few people were not as shocked as she thought, but looked at her silently, Fengying. Mr. Kui asked cautiously, did you not sleep well yesterday? Or did you read some book again? Old General Kui is an infatuated straight man. The only lady he met in his youth was his wife. After a lot of effort, he got married, and from then on, all his thoughts were only on his wife. When it comes to temperament, she is really innocent. After hearing this, she actually thought her daughter was crazy. MRSG was unhappy. Dad? You actually said that about your daughter? Could your daughter make this up? It took Xiao and the others a long time to find out. Mu Bo next to Wen Yu and Zhang Yuan, the guard of the Qi family, after running around for several months. Master Qing also remembered a lot when he woke up. Sister-in-law, have you seen that Xiao Yun from Qi Mansion? Now I will show you what Yu Bai looks like. She said it angrily, but there was a feeling in her heart that it was indeed so. My father doesn't believe it, and he won't believe it if I tell my father-in-law. Mrs. Kui's mouth was open and she couldn't calm down for a long time. Old General Kui was sitting in his chair looking very shameless. This time, he straightened up and his expression became serious. Is this true, Brother Kui sighed? That's going to be troublesome. As soon as MRSG left, someone came to invite her grandson. Chi Wu pulled Wen Yu over there and suddenly felt emotional. Ayu, when you chose to marry me, you probably thought that this marriage could help you solve many problems. But now, if I marry you, I really haven't given you a good life for a few days. It makes you worry, makes you think, and always makes you experience unpleasant things. If you weren't so smart and capable, if you were weak, your life in the Qi family would be better than your mother's. Where to go? Now, not only have the pressure and methods of the witch been blocked, but her true identity has also been revealed. Moreover, he has done so much for the prince and grandson. It's all me, I owe you. It's really my blessing to have you as my wife. He rarely spoke such long sentences, and his face turned red. When you nodded with satisfaction, it's good to know. Then you have to treat me well in the future. Of course, I will only treat you well. The sweet expressions on the two people's faces were still there when they entered the house. All of a sudden, the grandson saw him clearly. He was angry, and now he was even more angry. He didn't want to be aggressive with Chi Wu, so he only glared at Wen Yu sternly. The prince sat on the roof and saw it. He burst into laughter. What an awkward and silly son. Ayu, come here. Tell me, what are you guys doing there? Taijun pulled Chi Wu and bit his ear. His information network is not weak either. Once he has a clear direction of investigation, it will be quick. That man is indeed the son of Prince Yang. Prince Yang is missing and the princess is dead. It's all very strange. After saying that, he raised his eyebrows proudly and looked at Chi Wu. In this world, only the prince and the two of them know the cause of Prince Yang's death. Then, the emperor began to train him. Under the pseudonym Zhao Yuan, he was accepted as a disciple by Master Yang Feng. At the same time, he was taught by Wang 11, Yuan Chenju and others. Ha, the lineup is not small, right? In the past 3 years, he even started to travel from south to north. When he went there, he was accompanied by famous teachers, and he learned as he went. It was Master Yang who accompanied him to Yuanzhou. As Taijun said, he couldn't help but feel sour at the corner of his mouth. The emperor worked so hard just for him. Looking at Wen Yu, she was talking to her father with a smile. What did she say? What's going on with that half-smiling expression on my father's face? Humored, don't tell me, your Wen Yu's eyesight is really good. You can tell at a glance that he has a good temperament. The emperor built it according to Ming Jun's standards, how can it be worse? Taijun sneered. Chi Wu felt sad for his grandson. If the emperor liked someone and trained his successor according to such standards, it would be too late for everyone to praise him. Who could have an opinion or stop him? As a result, he hid it, used the sick prince to block it, and even let him step on his grandson's head. Outside, they are even supporting King Wu and King An to fight against each other. Why is all this necessary? What's your expression? Taejun felt sympathy in Chiwoo's eyes, and he became even more angry. MRSG had a pleasant chat at Kui's house and returned home. Sure enough, the Marquis sent someone to ask MRSG to rest in her yard. It was his own people who were sent. MRSG said deliberately, "I have something to see my father-in-law." Kyo should have known in advance that she would have brought it up and asked someone to reply directly. Kyo said that he had important things to do and he didn't have time to see her. The next day, Chi Yuduan went to court with his father. The emperor had already seen the memorial of the Chi family's residence and was very satisfied with his performance over the years and praised him a few times. Kyo waited until the end and followed the emperor to the imperial study room. That night, Chi Yuduan secretly arrived at a small courtyard. When the person who opened the door saw him, he didn't say anything and led him directly to the main room. Someone opened the curtain and he entered the room. There is a young man in the house who is making tea by himself. Seeing him come in, he smiled. Chi Yuduan stepped forward and knelt down on one knee. "Your Highness. I can see you." There was intimacy in his voice. The young man was Li Qilai. He got down from his seat and raised himself up with his hands. "General Chi, are you okay?" Chi Yuduan stood up, his attitude still respectful. "It has been almost 2 years since your Highness and I last said goodbye. Time flies so fast. I received your letter and learned that you have come to this point. It is really disappointing. I admire you very much. With the guidance of the imperial grandfather, and the help of you, my father and old friends, if we don't get to this point, wouldn't I be helpless?" "What are you talking about, Your Highness? It's my honor to be valued by you and work for you." After the two of them were polite, they started talking about business. "Maybe just one chapter, and I'll get a massage later. Lazy donkey grinding." End of this chapter. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 388. Chapter 388. Let's explode first. Chi Yuduan quietly withdrew after talking to Li Qilai. Li Qilai was sitting in the room, calculating silently, with an excited expression on his face. A very beautiful young came out. He smiled with white teeth and said, "Master. It seems that you have a good discussion with Master Chi." "That's right. His two teams of 8,000 people have quietly arrived 400 miles away from the capital. Something has happened unexpectedly, so we must prepare in advance. Your father has no identity now and has never even been to the Golden Palace. The situation is urgent." Ah. Originally, the emperor discussed with him in autumn. But recently the emperor's health has been a problem. Although the imperial doctor is actively treating it, he also told him in private that the emperor's body is like summer rain. You don't know whether there will be thunder or when it will explode. If it explodes now, it will be nothing to him. The prince and grandson are all here, but just relying on the emperor's edict, you can't hold that position. Didn't you say that you can go to the Jinluan Palace in just these 2 days? It's not like I can control everything as soon as the emperor's grandfather mentions it. Besides, did the emperor guard against him? What if Mr. Lei doesn't explode? How long will he wait? Will the emperor find someone else he likes? If you can get it yourself, you don't have to wait for others to give it to you. Master, do you still remember? At the beginning, the slave's grandpa Zhang was executed because of your father's affairs. He sent people to send messages, saying that before the prince disappeared, he had an ear-to-ear with this adult. The prince disappeared. Did he do it? The imperial grandfather has checked thoroughly, and he has no suspicion at all. Besides, what is he trying to do? As soon as I waved, he arrived. I can also see whether he is wholeheartedly. Besides, now is not the time to talk about this. The master is wise. When you and Chi Wu sometimes lived in an inn, and sometimes lived in their own yard. The tossing back and forth is because I am afraid that the Marquis will let someone come to find. At first, the Marquis really asked people to look for him. After 2 searches, they hid and never came again. That day at the inn, Song Shang told Wen Yu the news he had learned. It's been too long, he said the same thing when he came up. Wen Yu smiled wryly. Mr. Zhou's parents died young and his family was well off. His uncle treated him well, so he was able to study and take exams. When he was in high school, he did not return to his hometown. He asked his uncle to go to Beijing, but when he went back, he encountered bandits blocking his way. Robbery, dead. His close classmate, who passed the national examination a few years after him, came to the capital to take the exam, and also came to look for him, planning to stay in the capital for a few months, waiting for the exam next spring, but ended up suffering from charcoal in the inn. Died. His aunt also died later. Let's put it this way, almost everyone who comes close to him will die. He is so ruthless, isn't it surprising to others? Because he always had letters, or his notes, the letters started very frequently, then gradually decreased, and then stopped after more than 10 years, so everyone just thought that he had forgotten about his past after being promoted, but no one suspected anything else. It's really weird, when you couldn't understand. Look. This is a letter he wrote to his fellow villagers in his early years. This is a later one. This is his memorial and other official handwriting. When you looked at each one carefully, but she was not sure whether it was written by one person. I'm afraid I'm not a master, so I can't identify it. Those who write about returning home are confident and elegant. Those who write memorials are neat and rigorous. Although there are changes before and after, but everyone seems to be like this, right? For example, my handwriting now is just like when I woke up. Times are different. Chi Wu asked, what just woke up? Wen Yu was so startled that he forgot he was there. Song Shang smoothed things over, my handwriting has also changed. It's different after drinking and before drinking. I need to find someone to identify it. Wen Yu was a little discouraged. I don't think it's useful, he does things so flawlessly. The people closest to him are all dead. Even if there are some who are not dead, he is an old man now. I'm afraid we won't recognize each other. The next day it was the morning of the dynasty, and the ministers who went to the palace discovered that there was a young man standing under the steps of the emperor's throne. Not wearing official uniform, with a bright smile on his face and a somewhat curious expression, he looked at the hall. Although he doesn't have that kind of trained demeanor, his energetic face and hard-working posture are not weak in style. The ministers looked at it curiously. Mr. Li Ji knew something, and Wen Yu had already conveyed the news. At this moment, he was stroking his beard and glanced at Mr. He Ji. Mr. He Ji has been very busy recently and has lost weight. He saw the young man but didn't react. It seems that I am still a step ahead. King Wu and King An also looked at this person. They didn't even know him, but they knew that the person standing here must have something to say. Something is going to happen, and both are a little cautious. The prince, who had not been seen for a long time, also arrived with the help of his grandson. He is still the same, gentle and graceful, with a slight smile. Before the emperor arrived, the ministers saluted the prince one after another. There were people greeting me softly along the way, but they didn't dare to use force. The prince came to his seat and sat down first. He was the only one sitting in the whole room. The young man followed everyone in saluting the prince, but did not come over. King An and King Wu both came over and greeted him considerately for a while, and then pretended to inquire about the young man unintentionally. The prince looked at the young man, his smile grew thicker, and he thought, his son is more pleasing to his eyes. But he shook his head at the 2 emperor brothers and said that he did not recognize them. But King Wu and King An just feel like the prince recognizes them. And you know a lot, so why don't you tell me? It's so awkward. Li Qiwan was neatly dressed in uniform and crown, standing behind the prince. He had a cold and arrogant air about him, and did not even glance at the young man standing there. When the emperor came to court, the prince also stood up. After paying his respects to the emperor glanced at the prince and motioned for him to sit down. As usual, go through the procedures first, finish talking about business matters, and finish talking about the most important things. The emperor did not leave the court, but with a wave of his hand, announced the decree. He read it for a long time, and waited for the young man to kneel down to thank him. Everyone realized that this person was the only son of His Royal Highness King Xiang. This time, he was named King Xiang and succeeded his father's position. This is an exceptional improvement. There was a slight commotion among the people below. Everyone looked at each other and frowned. The most surprised ones are King An and King Wu. They didn't get any news at all. Moreover, looking at the meaningful smile of the prince just now, he already knew it. What did the emperor tell him? Or, although this prince is a sick man, he is very well informed. And this Li Qilai is actually on an equal footing with them. Look at the emperor's appearance, what is he planning to do? Li Qilai, king of Xiang, thanked the emperor according to the rules. Then he turned around and saw the prince, and then met the grandson. The prince had a friendly attitude, said something softly, and looked up and down. But Taizhen's nose was turned upward, looking arrogant as if he didn't take him seriously at all. The prince turned to the emperor and said, "Father, when I look at Qi Li's features, I can see that he is 3/3 of his father's demeanor and is very similar to the fifth brother. But his demeanor is much gentler than that of the fifth brother at his age. At such an age, it's rare to be so calm." The emperor looked at Li Qilai and nodded with satisfaction, "That's true." Wang Wu and An Wang, with their mask-like smiles, were actually filled with hatred and wanted to go back and check. Then, the emperor pointed to the thick pile of paper on the table and said to the prince, "These days, there are so many papers about impeaching the East Palace. Li Ji always asked you to come forward to testify, but you didn't pay attention. Thinking of you, I didn't say much about my body. But the crown prince is related to the fate of the country, so I can't be careless. Although a few things are exaggerated, but..." He looked ugly. The prince said softly, "Your Majesty, your sons are all outstanding, and they are all outstanding. When you first appointed your son as the prince, your son was ecstatic. He also vowed to devote all his efforts to you and the court. It's just this, his body is really unsatisfactory. He has more ambition but less energy. Although Qi Huan is a grandson, most of his energy is spent on taking care of his children. I feel ashamed of the important responsibilities of the emperor, and I also submitted my resignation to you. But you, my father, must not only think about the stability of the court, but also be considerate of the body of your son and minister, and you must also take into account the face of his son and minister." The prince smiled, looking down on everything, "That's why I kept refusing to approve. Now, what the emperor is referring to has been verified, and I all recognize it. Please punish me according to the law." The emperor sighed softly, "I fully understand your situation. Your mistake is that you trust your grandson too much, and Li Qiwan." Li Qiwan walked from behind the prince to the front and knelt down beside the prince. He acts recklessly, willfully, does not listen to advice, fools the prince, acts hastily, and is frivolous in words and deeds. It is really difficult for him to hold the post of grandson. He should be punished for his speed. Now Li Qiwan is removed from the position of grandson. Li Qiwan was not surprised at all. He kowtowed, "I accept the decree and thank you for your kindness." The ministers were extremely nervous. King Wu and King An looked at each other, feeling funny, "What are we fighting about?" The emperor looked at Li Qiwan, his voice a little impatient. "Li Qiwan is granted the title of Prince of the County forever, and he will enter Taishu Academy for. Father, the prince interrupted with a smile. Publish another chapter. Sorry, I broke my promise. The old witch still has a few more chapters to go before she dies. If the writing is not good, I don't want to post it. It's not just laziness either. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 389. Chapter 389 The Darkest Hour. Father. The prince said, my son still has some affection for me, you see. The emperor's mood was unclear. He looked at him intently for a while, then turned and waved to the eunuch. The took out Zhongshenzi again and started reciting it. It turns out that Marquis Zhenyuan wrote a letter saying that he had been seriously injured several times when he was young. Now the old injuries often recur and he is unable to take care of military affairs. The second son, Chi Yuduan, served in the Northwest Army for several years. He was loyal and diligent. He trained hard with the soldiers, fought on the battlefield, and achieved countless achievements. I now apply to give up the position of Marquis of Zhenyuan to my second son. The emperor agreed. He asked the Marquis to step down on his 60th birthday. There was too much commotion before, so not many people paid attention to this very important matter to the Qi family and related people. Wen Qian was also in the court, and he was stunned. Master Wen frowned. Instead of conferring the crown prince, he abdicated the throne directly. The water in the Qi family is not shallow. Is this how they recognize Wen Yu? No, I have to ask when I get back. The first stone in Qi Yuduan's heart fell to the ground. Along with the Marquis, he went forward and knelt down to salute and thank him. Li Qiwan was still kneeling there. The prince accidentally glanced at it and somehow saw, Li Qiwan and Qi Yuduan looked at each other. This was originally normal, but the prince is weak in body, but his brain and eyes are not weak. The expressions of the two people. Thinking about what his son found out, Li Qilai seemed to have been to the northwest, they had already hooked up, right? Qi Yuyi was also in the temple, and the people around him looked at him strangely. There was also someone who had a good relationship with him, standing next to him. He was so surprised that he quickly pulled him and asked anxiously, Yuyi, is this true? Why? Qi Yuyi, who had a blushing face, is no longer as arrogant and comfortable as when he was yelling at home. When the matter is done, all officials will withdraw. Mr. Hiji is not stupid, he has a calm face. On the way, he secretly glanced at Mr. Li Ji, and saw that Mr. Li Ji also frowned slightly, with a confused look on his face. Well, it seemed that he didn't know either. But Mr. Li Ji thought to himself, sure enough, life is like a play. My acting was quite good. Everyone retreated, leaving only the royal family. The prince's attitude was sincere. Father, since Li Qiwan has done so many wrong things, I think it's better not to grant this title to the prince. The emperor's attitude was cold. I didn't demote him to a commoner, but you, the father, do it instead. The prince smiled in embarrassment. I didn't mean that, it's just that you see, the masters who taught him since he was a child are all famous teachers in the world. And you have to teach him personally, and I have taken him with you to teach him by words and deeds. After so many years, he has actually, and it looks like it's a piece of rotten wood that can't be carved into stone. The emperor interrupted him, so, I am going to let him enter the study room and let the masters teach him, and he will study hard for 2 years. Li Qiwan was lying on the ground. At first, before he fully understood what the emperor meant, he was interrupted by his father. Now I understand that instead of asking myself to learn again, I am actually going to be under house arrest. This old thing. Evil thoughts were rolling in my heart, and I wanted to jump up and strangle him. But he knew that he couldn't fight against the person in front of him at all, so he didn't dare to get up, his face turned to the ground, and his body trembled slightly. The emperor saw it and thought he was afraid. Just go in and learn the lessons for 2 more years. If you learn it and become sensible, I will give you another chance and even reuse it again. This was originally what the emperor said to fool the prince and grandson, but Leaky Lai thought, these words are really not just to fool him. I'm afraid it was a convenient reminder to me that I should stick to my duties and stay out of the circle. Otherwise, the rights he gave can be taken back at any time. Humph, it seems that I was right. The prince's face was moved, clearly showing weakness. Father, my son, I am able to accompany you until now, thanks to Huanu's care for many years. In fact, my son has been working really hard, he is still alive, but I just don't want my father to be sad for his son. My son is the only one I have, and my love is beyond words. We have never been separated from each other since he was born. My son really hopes to see his father every day during his lifetime. The prince stood up and knelt down. Please, father, be considerate of your son. My son will last until, he will last as soon as he closed his eyes. Tears flowed down. Li Qiwan turned to look at his father, tears overflowing from his eyes, and his heart ached. The emperor was angry in his heart, so he suppressed it and looked at the prince coldly. Li Qiwan, what did you say? After a while, the emperor turned to look at his grandson. Li Qiwan knew that he should listen to his grandfather. But he couldn't say that if the emperor went down the slope, father and son would never see each other again. My father's body was in a hurry and he had to explain it tonight, so there was nothing surprising. Without the ability to resist, we can even die together. Imperial grandfather, my grandson is incompetent and has betrayed your trust. My grandson would rather be a commoner than stay by his father's side. Grandfather, my grandson takes care of his father personally. Every time he takes medicine, it takes a long time to coax him. If his grandson is not with him, his grandson is afraid, his grandson is afraid. His voice was choked and he was hunched in pain. The prince looked at him angrily. You silly boy, your emperor's grandfather is punishing you for not doing your job properly, not paying attention to state affairs, and doing whatever you want. But you have ruined everything yourself. He shook his head with disgust and smiled bitterly. The emperor looked at their father and son, then at King Wu and King An, and at the few people nearby. Everyone stood expressionless and solemn. No one pleads for mercy, no one agrees, and no one objects. After a change of mind, I realized that my actions were a little hasty this time, so it would be better to be more stable. Anyway, they can't make waves. Okay. I will let him accompany you. There is no need to shirk the position of county king, it is just a name. Princes and grandsons should be demoted to common people. Does it sound good? Get up. Thank you, father. The prince was obviously relieved, but he couldn't get up from his knees. Li Qiwan quickly stood up to help, and Li Qilai also came over in 2 steps to help. Li Qiwan resisted the temptation to kick him over and directly blocked him with his own body. Li Qiwan stood there with his hands open, looking slightly embarrassed. The emperor gave Li Qiwan a fierce look. Look at your potential. Qi Li stays, you all go down first. Everyone saluted, and the prince came out first. After moving for a while, he was supported by his son and carefully walked down the steps. Under the steps, there is his soft sedan. After all, King An was young, more arrogant, and had relatively few palaces. He followed the prince silently. Seeing this, King Wu also came closer as if casually. Brother Emperor, this Li Qilai, do you know him? King An couldn't believe it. Although he was not as enlightened as King Wu, he still felt that something was not good. The prince smiled bitterly. This is a surprise that our father has prepared for us. How could my brother know about it? his eyes were all on his son. Although Li Kewan was almost demoted to a commoner, he still took the steps of a grandson. His face was black and smelly, and the two imperial uncles did not give him face. "Brother Emperor, now that things have come to this, you still refuse to tell the truth," King An was anxious. The prince's expression became serious. "Ninth brother. On weekdays, you have the emperor's attention and the queen's love, so your life goes smoothly, but don't forget about it. Even if my brother knew about this, what could he do? Nothing." He almost got Chi Huan involved. The prince was rarely excited. "Father, there must be deep meaning in what you do, and you and I can't comment on it. For you." He even glanced at King Wu. "For the sake of your own wealth and life, please be more honest with me. With such a poor body, I managed to get Huaner back. Come on, huh? I won't know anything anymore when I close my eyes." The prince finally became angry. King Wu and King An looked at each other. They have been planning for many years. "Is it too late for us to be honest now?" Getting in the car, Li Kewan was worried that the prince was really angry, so he gently stroked his knee. "Father." The prince looked at him and smiled. "Dad, everything is fine." He turned his head and said, "Let's see if they are bloody. Go back, Chi Wu, and when you are both there." As soon as he got home, his great-grandson started throwing things and roaring loudly. He didn't know what he was yelling about. Chi Wu was on the side trying to persuade him, but his face was also pale. When Yu's heart was as cold as ice, it all came together. Hunting Yu Bai to play the piano on the terrace, the prince sat cross-legged and followed the method taught by Dr. Huang, taking long abdominal breaths to evacuate the bad odor in his heart. The next chapter hasn't been written yet, so don't worry. The Duke's wife is beautiful but has a dark heart. Author, see the peach fish again. Chapter 390. Chapter 390. Ask for fish and get fish. When everyone left, Li Qilai smiled lightly. "Grandfather, it seems that today we, our uncles and cousins, as well as the civil and military officials of the entire dynasty, have been shocked." The emperor also laughed loudly. "Do you know why the emperor's grandfather only demoted the grandson but saved face for the prince?" Li Qilai's respectful and intimate attitude was quite good. "My grandson would venture to speculate. One is that you have loved your uncle the prince for decades. No matter what happens, you instinctively think about him. You can treat others in a business-like manner. But I can't do it with the prince uncle." He looked at the emperor's face as he spoke. The emperor thought of the care and support he had given to the prince for so many years, and felt that he was really different from him. Nod slightly. "The other one, today you raised your grandson and shocked everyone. If you press that one too hard, your grandson will become a target." Li Qilai smiled. The emperor also laughed. "You are right. Besides, you have just come to court, and you have not had any direct contact with various government affairs and personnel. Although the prince is weak, he has been in various ministries and has a good reputation. If you have the opportunity, you should learn more from him and even ask him to guide you. It's just, I don't know, grandson, but the emperor is willing," Li Qilai said mischievously, showing a hint of liveliness. The emperor smiled again and said nothing. Chi Ho and Chi Yuduan went home, and Tan family was waiting for news. "Now when I hear it, what I have been dreaming about for decades has finally been achieved," and Tan almost breaks his guard. What does it mean to be radiant, and what does it mean to be satisfied? Just look at how she looks now. Furthermore, as she embarked on a new path, her mentality changed, and she found that her son's demeanor was as powerful as that of a superior. This is great. She didn't look at Mr. Ho carefully at all, and she didn't know that he seemed to have something on his mind. Mrs. Tan remembered another good news and said with a smile on her face, "Master Ho, I have to say, long live the Lord is really a wise king. The grandson's fate is his own fault. I have told Qi Yang and the others many times before. You said you were not allowed to have any contact with them, but they didn't listen. Now, it's my son's fault that he wasn't implicated. Mr. Ho made no sound. Chi Yuduan glanced at his father's expression and said to Mrs. Tan, "Mother, we only obey the holy will. Don't talk about anything else. Mr. Tan is happy, where can he stop? This matter is closely related to the Chi family, how can you not say it? Even you can't take it lightly. Your father's responsibility is entrusted to you, and you are the head of the Chi family. You can't be nice to you, me, everyone, and smile everywhere. Those who deserve to be punished should be punished. If you really don't listen, you have to find a way to deal with it." Mrs. Tan shook her head slightly, and the dongju on her hairpin also moved slightly. What a arrogant person. Otherwise, if you don't say anything about it, you will also bring trouble to the Chi family. Then you will be a sinner of the Chi family. How will you stand upright in front of the ancestors' memorial tablet in the future? Chi Yuduan sighed, "Mother, my son understands." Chi Ho became a little serious. "Yuduan, what happened in court today is not simple. Maybe, it will be chaotic. As a father, I feel very uneasy. I will call Xiao Wu and his wife back to restrain them. You may have a lot of connections here. At present, even my father can't understand. The person who posted me doesn't know who is behind it. So, don't meet people easily." Upon hearing this, Mrs. Tan said, "Master Ho, there have been a lot of troubles lately. As long as he doesn't meet strangers, the relationship in your hands must be slowly handed over to him. Besides, our family's property, there are so many things to clear up." Chi Yuduan stopped his mother again. "Mother, what my father said is right. Recently, my son has been doing business and keeping in touch with the closest relationship." Chi Ho said solemnly, "Zhenyuan Marquis Mansion is loyal to the emperor and hard-working, and is based on military merit. We will listen to whoever sits on that seat. Before sitting on that seat, mortals can't get involved in anything. Do you understand?" Chi Yuduan looked at his father and smiled lightly. Before he could agree, Mrs. Tan became unhappy again. "Then Qi Yang is so close to the grandson, why do you keep ignoring him? Yuduan did a good job, what are you doing? Are you saying this with a face?" Chi Ho felt that the Tan family was particularly noisy today and ignored her. Qi Yang's previous interactions had their own reasons. They did not involve official matters, and even the emperor did not object. Besides, this is the case and the other is the case. The emperor granted Xiang the title. "King, what is going on here is serious. If the Qi family is destroyed, the world will be in chaos. You are a woman, so don't interrupt if you don't understand." You. Tan's anger has also risen. Now, she doesn't need to be as tolerant as she used to be, right? "Mother," Chi Yuduan stopped him quickly, "father is right. We cannot be too careful to protect our wealth and glory. Now tell me, how will you celebrate your father's birthday?" In the East Palace, after the prince listened to a song, Li Qiwan was almost done venting. Chi Wu breathed a sigh of relief. "Your Highness. Your Highness. I am now the Prince of Yongjin County. How can I have any palace?" "Oh, Jin. Do you want me to always be careful about my words and deeds?" "Bah. Then I'll call you Brother Huan," Chi Wu said. Li Qiwan looked at him with bright eyes and suddenly burst into laughter. "Okay. From now on, I am your brother. We are not at a loss yet, come on." The two of them ran away to discuss things. When you and Master Qing are watching Yubai's work. Yubai is really spiritual. He took over all these tasks in such a short time. Master Qing moved his hands and feet while watching. "My eldest brother, he is a genius. There is nothing he doesn't understand. We sisters are also taught by his side. He is so strict. If he doesn't do well, he will slap his hands. I think of some past things again. Li Daniu was taking classes with us at that time. She didn't learn well, it can't be said that she was not good at it, but no matter how hard she worked, she was still very different from our sisters. Master Ching despises Li Daniu from the bottom of his heart. I seem to have heard the master say that her handwriting was measured and practiced with a ruler. Although she didn't have any character, she was extremely neat. She obviously put in a lot of hard work. Later, she stopped coming to class and stayed with the eldest brother. It's in the yard where we work, sometimes we go to the kiln in that yard to burn things. When you said, she probably feels the difference between herself and you, and feels that even if she learns it, it will be of no use to her. That's why she turned around. I was young at the time and didn't understand, but now that I think about it, the way she looked at her elder brother. You mean, she really likes your eldest brother? Master Ching smiled and sighed, who in the world doesn't like him? When you thought silently. At Zhou Mansion, Li Kun broke into a cold sweat after learning what happened today. Recruit people immediately and ask them to find out the information. Then, he said, "Oh my God," and sat down. He always thought that he was extremely smart, but he never expected that something like this would happen. The key is, I didn't get any news at all beforehand. It's so unexpected. This is simply unreasonable. Rarely upset, jumping up and pacing back and forth in the room. This is really going to be troublesome. This dog emperor has a lot of secret tricks up his sleeve, and he was almost fooled. Fortunately, thinking of what the eldest son told him last time, his back became wet. Thank you for not showing up. After calming down, think about what he might have done wrong and where he might drag yourself into trouble, and take notes. After thinking about it carefully for a long time, it's not bad. After a while, news came one after another, but not much. He stroked his beard and pondered what King Wu might do. He was in a cold sweat again, with an arrow on the string. How could King Wu do it without firing? But is there any guarantee of success? He sat there and thought about it all night. When Qi Yuyi left the palace gate, he was surrounded by several friends. They were all so shocked that they dragged him and asked him for a long time, but looking at his meek look, one person was angry and complained about him. And walked away. He swallowed his foam, returned home, and was about to enter the front hall, when he heard someone talking inside. He walked quietly to the door, and his father was talking to Yuduan seriously. And the mother's eyes were full of her biological son, and the happiness on her face. He felt a little uncomfortable. And Qi Yuduan's aura adds warmth to his body. Just now, the reactions of several friends were beyond his expectation. Seeing this scene again, I can't help but feel a little disappointed. He stopped walking forward. After hesitating for a moment, he turned around and went to Aunt Xiaoyun's room. Xiaoyun obviously heard the news and looked at him. "Master, are you back?" After saying that, he smiled brightly. Qi Yuyi's heart was suddenly filled with tenderness and sweetness. They didn't understand. They didn't understand what I wanted. You can't have your cake and eat it too. My choice was right.